Hello, everyone. Danielle Binns here. I'm super excited to be here. I'm going to jump right in because I know we only have 30 minutes and I have a bunch of goodness that I want to share with you. So I'm just going to make sure hopefully everyone can see me, because as soon as I start sharing my screen, I'll be able to see anything. So let's see here. So I'm just going to share this and dun, dun. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, Tegan, maybe just text me and let me know that you guys can see the right. Okay, perfect. Okay, so welcome to Superpower Food Day. I am gonna fly through these slides because I have so much goodness I wanna share, but I also wanna make sure I answer your questions. I am, by the way, if you hear an echo, it's because I'm moving today, like moving trucks and everything. So I'm airing from my former bedroom. So I apologize for the background. Usually I have a much more colorful and fun setting. So, but I didn't want to miss this, so that's why I'm here. Anyways, if we've never met, I'm Danielle Binns. I am a certified nutritional practitioner and, oopsie, who shows parents how to help their children eat better and establish a healthy relationship with food. And as a mom of 3 girls, trust me, I get the struggle of trying to feed your family, especially when you have a picky eater at home. So I don't want to bore you with details about me. I'm here to help you today, but you probably want to know who and why to listen to me for the next 30 minutes, okay? So I'll just quickly share this. I personally experienced the struggles of having a picky eater. I remember standing at the back of the room at this medical convention in Chicago, asking the experts there how to help my daughter eat and grow and why she was so severely underweight. It took matters into my own hands, and shortly thereafter, creating a mealtime protocol for my daughter that's helped her tremendously, completely transformed her into one of the most adventurous kids at the table. And now I'm actually presenting at that very same global conference. I never thought, 8 years ago that I would be standing at the front of the room answering my own question. I also have the privilege of training schools and childcare staff on children's nutrition and how to feed them properly. So I'm also a trusted source for various media outlets like CTV News. Now, in my 7 years of working with families, especially in children's eating, I've learned that we are approaching meals all wrong in many cases. And I want to set the record straight and show you that your families and your child's eating habits can change. Okay, I promise they can change. I've seen frustrated parents who thought there was no hope see changes within the first week. I've seen children with less than 10 foods start to try foods they would never touch before. And I want to give you a few key strategies today that I use with clients that works so well. So here's what we're about to dive into. I'm going to share the truth about feeding kids. I am so excited to share this with you because I feel like we've all, we see mealtimes through the wrong lens in many cases. We'll talk about that. We have the wrong mealtime goal. I'll share with you what the right goal should be. And then I want to leave you with 4 strategies that you can use right away tonight at your next meal, okay? And then of course, we're going to answer your questions. So I need to address something first, because you've probably seen countless comments on Facebook or otherwise from parents saying things like, feeding your child so easy, just take them to the garden, they'll eat all the vegetables, or just make them sit there at the table and eventually they'll eat. Or children shouldn't be allowed to be picky. But trying to raise adventurous eaters and good eaters isn't as simple as some people make it seem. It comes with its challenges and doing things that kind of work but don't feel good. Like maybe you turn on the TV or the iPad to get more bites in, even though the research shows that distracted eating has negative effects on self-regulation. That iPad can work wonders. Maybe you tried bribing with candy or chocolate or dessert or anything else that your child likes, or you beg them to just have one taste because you know that this kid-friendly recipe that they're gonna love that mac and cheese. Or maybe you just say, screw it, I'm gonna give them what's just easiest because I just don't have the brain power to even think of what else to make that's just gonna go to waste, right? So it's chicken nuggets, pasta, pizza again, and then you eat your dinner later with your partner. A lot of parents I start working with say, like, my child can't change now. This has been going on for so long, or they just seem to be set in their ways. And maybe you do too. Or maybe your partner sees eating and feeding your child differently. Maybe you've tried everything. But what if you were wrong? What if you could actually transform a fussy eater into a child who was willing to explore new foods? You know, having been in this work for over 7 years and having a former picky eater myself, I can tell you it is possible. This is not how it has to be. And the truth is that kids actually, they're born to want to be competent eaters. Your child really doesn't want to be that kid who goes to a play date or a friend's birthday party and can't eat what's served. They don't want to disappoint you. They want to make you proud as their parents. And you know, and I've also seen it with my own eyes with a child I thought could never change. So my first daughter, Sienna, was again underweight, very picky, and I thought she could never enjoy food like her mom. I'm Italian. I love traveling and trying all the foods. And I thought to myself, this is never going to happen. I'm never going to be able to have that experience with my daughter. And we tried everything to help her. So I just figured this is just the way she is. And I felt guilty because I was feeding her the same foods over and over again. And I would feed her a plate full of like yummy food, and it would just, I would have to toss it or, you know, eat it myself because she just wouldn't try anything. So I knew something had to change if I wanted to set her up to have a positive relationship with food. So I set out to make it happen. And, you know, I remember we went to go see the pediatrician. Usually when we went to go see them, they were constantly telling me, oh, she's not gaining. She needs to expand her food list. She has a limited diet. She might need a feeding tube. Like, it was so stressful. And I remember at one point we went to go see pediatrician, endocrinologist, and Sienna, they were so impressed with her progress. They actually started asking me what I was doing differently. And so I want to tell you that this story doesn't stop with me. There are countless, hundreds of other families that I've worked with who have seen similar transformations, like Aisha's son here, who ate no meat, no protein sources, and gagged at the sight of food. But within a few weeks of implementing the strategies that I gave her in my mealtime plan for him, he tried bacon, he tried hot dogs, and he was asking to eat ham. She was so relieved, I can't even tell you, to finally see her son eating protein. Now, hold on. I know what you're thinking. Danielle, hold on. You're a nutritionist. Like, why would you be happy about this little boy eating hot dogs, ham, and bacon? Now, I know they're not the healthiest of foods on the planet, right? I get that. But what I'm going to tell you next might surprise you, because when you work with kids who have a short list of foods, eating any food is a good food. Now, I'd rather see them eat bacon than no protein at all. I'd rather see them eat something that might be not, the healthiest nutrient-rich foods than go without eating anything. So if there are healthier options, 100% we prioritize them. And trust me, I've got a long list of alternatives to these kid-friendly foods that are better. And so I will make those recommendations, but nutrition doesn't always come first, okay? So don't kick yourself if you're in this position where you can't get your child to expand their food list, and you're stuck in this rut of the not so healthy foods. But I want you to think about this question for a moment, okay, guys? What defines a successful meal for you? When do you walk away from the table and say, oh my gosh, that was such a good meal, right? Now, I know I can't really see the answers here, but I'm gonna guess that most of you will say it's when my child eats. My child had their dinner, finally tried a new food, didn't complain about the food, cleaned their plate, right? Those are the types of things that excite us. Now, I'm gonna tell you though that this is the wrong goal to have. Why? Because you can't control what they eat, right? It's one of the few things that your kids can actually control. The only way you can control it is by bribing, negotiating, withholding treats, eating while watching TV, all those things that don't feel good. You probably want your child to just eat on their own and without that power struggle. And also, controlling their intake doesn't really teach our kids how to build that confidence with eating, especially if we're telling them when and how much to eat, even though, guys, they might not even be hungry, right? So as I mentioned, I had an underweight daughter, and so it was super hard not chasing her around with food. So I get the pressure that comes with feeding a child, whether they're small or have a limited diet. We feel like we're not doing our job as parents if we just let them go without eating. especially when we read about, the child in the UK who went blind from lack of nutrition. And we know that brain health and behavior development are heavily influenced by nutrition in the earlier years, and multiple other studies that demonstrate good nutrition early on enhances cognitive function and social behavior, right? We know nutrition is important, but on the flip side, I couldn't ignore the other research that shows parental interference and focus on eating has lasting effects, the wrong effects. So one feeding clinic wrote that parents' short-term feeding goals may end up having long-lasting, potentially negative consequences down the road, right? So we can push our kids to eat, but that actually can impact them in a very negative way. So while it's tempting to micromanage their eating, numerous studies are showing that controlling their feeding practices are linked to lower self-regulation, meaning they don't know how to listen to their body when they're hungry or full, and ultimately can lead to a higher weight status among children as they get older. So to sum it up, we really want our kids to make their own food choices. Because, I want you to think for a second, how enjoyable are meals for you on a scale of 1 to 10, right? Very rarely do I hear parents answer 8, 9, 10. It's usually quite low. And this is what it might look like for you. Maybe, you start the meal feeling worried or frustrated. You're like, oh, great, here we go. I'm going to make a kid-friendly food for my child that he should really like, but he's not going to eat it. And then it creates this tense environment because you've already gone in with this assumption. And your child goes into fight or flight mode because they can sense that anxiety and stress and frustration from us, right? But what the body can't decipher from is physical stress, like being chased by a tiger, versus emotional stress. So there are adrenaline spikes. And when your adrenaline is up, your appetite is dropping, because who the heck wants to eat or try new food when they feel like their body thinks they're being chased by that tiger? So, as a result, your child eats poorly, behaves poorly, doesn't sit down at the table, and then we're more stressed out, right? How many of you guys feel like you're in this vicious cycle? This is what it looks like for a lot of families until they work with me. And we create this new cycle where you start the meal feeling calm and relaxed. So your child has nothing to be anxious about. This way their adrenaline stays low and it allows their appetite to build. And therefore they sit at the table longer, they're trying new foods. And if we're serving food the right way and saying the right things, then your child is going to eat better as well. As they say, healthy child, happy parent. So also, this is what I really, really, really want your meals to look like. Your next family meals, I want to give you a couple strategies to be able to do that. Okay, so I've got 4 takeaways from you. So if you have a paper and a pen, definitely feel free to write these down. Your first is to change the goal. I want you to make sure, instead of, this is a good meal if my child eats, I want you to say to yourself, this is a good meal, a successful meal, if everyone at the table is happy. Okay, because you can control that. You can create, now maybe your child may have had a long day at school and is fussy. Trust me, I get that. What do they call it? Like the 5 p.m. when you've got an infant, the witching hours. I feel like the witching hours never go away. They're always so tired after school and fussy and whatnot. But you can create that. You can create a more positive, relaxed environment. And the more you're smiling, the more your child will be. And when you do, this type of thing can happen here, right? So your kids may try new food without you saying a word. They may sit at the table and ask for foods they've never tried before. So I just took a few snippets from the parents that work with me to show you what can happen. The next thing I want you to do, now this is a really odd suggestion, and I'm gonna explain it to you, but I want you to try to not talk about food tonight, okay? Or at your next meal. Why? Because I want you to pay attention to how often food talk is an attempt to get your child to eat. And then pressure sneaks in, right? So you're like, when you talk about food, you say, well, do you like it? But wait, you ate it yesterday. Why aren't you eating it? Is it too hot? Is it too cold? And when you ask yes and no questions, they're going to give you the answer you don't want to hear. Like, yeah, it's too hot. I can't eat this. Or it's too cold, or whatever, right? Or you might say, if you eat this, I'll give you a cookie. So talking about food often allows for that control to sneak in that we were talking about. So instead, change the conversation. And you'll notice more smiles, no tears, less drama. So instead, again, you can do the talking, avoid those yes and no questions, tell a joke, tell a story. Guess what happened today? So tonight we'll be talking about our move and all of the things we realized that we need to get rid of once you start packing boxes, or, you know, talk about what you're going to do during the weekend. Just take the focus off the food. Another question for you guys, and typically in this environment, I would read your answers, but unfortunately, due to the technology, I'm not able to do that. So just think to yourself, how often are you offering the same foods to your child, right? You know, who here is giving your family or children the same foods over and over and again? You're like, oh my gosh, it's like the same rotation of the same 5 meals. It's funny, right? Because we want to expand our child's food list, but we don't give them enough opportunities. We don't put enough new foods in front of them, right? And that's simply because it's easier, because you're tired. You've got a lot on your plate too, literally and figuratively. You need some relaxation. And so sometimes we just go the easy route with meals and just make what we know they're going to eat. The other question is, how often do you ask your child, what do you want to eat, honey? Like, what would you like to have for dinner? Right? When we ask our child what they want, we get the same answers. Oh, chicken nuggets, yogurt, cereal, whatever, right? It's the same foods that your child eats anyways. So that inherently limits their variety. So if I'm going to tell you another takeaway, I didn't put this as a separate strategy, but I want you to try not to ask your child what to eat, because a child can't eat or eat new foods if we're not serving them, right? So your next strategy is I want you to decide what is served. Expose your child. So first of all, you pick, right? Instead of asking your child, I want you to decide what's served, and expose your child to a new food at every meal. So while you're including a food that they can eat just for comfort and to remove that anxiety for them, I want you to also include something that they don't quite love yet, or maybe that they haven't tried yet, with the expectation that they're not going to eat it. Because I'm telling you right now, they're probably not going to, unless you start to use some of the other strategies that I share with you. And just expose your family to something new every day. By the way, it doesn't have to be something brand spanking new that you've never seen before, right? Like gooseberries. It can be a food that you guys eat that your child doesn't eat yet. That's what's considered that as a new food. And so something else important I want to call out, when trying to decide what to offer, make sure it's something that you are excited about eating, because your child likely won't eat it. You're going to end up eating the leftovers anyways. And we want our kids to be eating the foods that we're eating, right? Ultimately, that's what we want to get to. So let's make those foods that we want to eat and that we want our kids to be eating. So this slide is super important, because I know we all think that, like, why won't my child eat? Eating is so simple. Put food in front of my child, they should want to eat. Like, we all need to eat to survive. However, eating is the most difficult thing that we do as humans. It's more difficult than learning to walk or talk, because it uses all 8 of the sensory systems at once. So what we need to do, because the sensory systems are like a muscle, we need to exercise that muscle. And in order to do that, we need to give our children opportunity to get familiar with food. So look at the foods your child avoids or dislikes, and give them opportunities to interact, play, explore those foods using their senses. Because when they do, what can happen, this is one of hundreds and hundreds, thousands of examples that I have. This little boy had a very limited diet, but using this kind of play with purpose strategy, he started to try more and more new foods. And his mom was so delighted. She says it brought a lightness back into their lives. Now, playing with food does not have to look like this, right? I know a lot of parents have that fear. You can play with purpose, and I have a tool that can help. So it's so funny, because I created this tool 2 or 3 years ago. It's called the Superpower Foods Placemat. Hilarious that today we're doing this event called Superpower Foods. But I want to share it with you, because some parents don't know the questions to ask, right? They don't know. We use tools like distractions, toys, phones, etc. at the meal. But this is parents love this digital placemat or activity mat, because it replaces the need for entertainment at the table. It is entertainment, and it's educational. So it takes away the pressure, because your child can go through and explore food on their own. So you put the food in the middle of the placemat, and they start to explore the way it looks, the way it smells, the way it feels, and if they feel comfortable, the way it tastes. And kids call it the dinner game. It removes so much stress and makes meals fun again. So it includes a parent guide, so you know exactly what to do, what kind of questions to ask to get your child exploring foods using that mat, and how to transform them into this food explorer that is more excited about new foods and trying new foods more than they ever have before. And then, you know, as I remembered, it's not about the eating. So this placemat transforms them into something fun, like a food explorer, food scientist, and guides them through each of the 4 senses. And by the way, they can do it by themselves because there's little images beside each checkbox that's related to the word. So for example, there's a rock for the word if the food feels hard, or a pillow to describe soft, and things like that. And then there's also a tracking sheet, so you can identify any themes that come up from exploring those foods. So if anybody wants to take a closer look at this amazing tool, over 3,000 families around the world have been using this, and I get emails almost daily saying that their child has tried a new food they never would try before because of this simple mat, this simple digital mat. You can print out as many copies as you like, and it's all yours, so it's $20 for the entire bundle by going to daniellebinns.com/placemat. But now what I want to do is I want to get to your questions. So I know a number of them have come through. So I'm going to pop in here. Oh boy. Okay. So let's see here. How do you know if a kid is too picky, when to start worrying? Also overall strategies. Okay. So great question. There is no defined definition of picky eating in the literature. However, if your child eats less than 20 foods, if I would even say, you know, less than 30 foods, they would be deemed, you know, picky eater. And depending on how many foods, that it goes from picky eater, developmental picky eater, to problem feeder or selective eater. What age would you recommend the placemat for? Great question. Age 3 is kind of where you want to start. You might need to, you'll have to do some walking through with them. So 3.5, and kind of use it as a guide for you. Once they're age 4, they should be able to do it on their own, up to about age 8 or 9, depending on where your child's at, okay? So yeah, so picky eating. The other things, if they omit certain categories of food, certain like protein, you know, meat, vegetables, if there's certain categories of nutrition that they don't consume, if they cry at the table regularly, if they won't sit with a family, there's a couple different criteria that would identify picky eater, you know, or not. Now, if there's tears, if there's gagging, vomiting, like those are red flags that might suggest there's something else going on, okay? Let's see here. My 4-year-old has a pretty limited variety of foods. He will sometimes agree to try a bite of something new, but typically decides he does not like it and asks for one of the things he usually eats. Okay, how can I work to expand his diet? Okay, so it's great, he's trying something new. What we want to do is get to a place where he is wanting to try the food on his own, because as long as it's our decision and we say, just try it, they're gonna try it just to appease us and get us off their back. We want to use a tool like the placemat, or just use your own you know, creative genius to come up with questions and ways to get them exploring food so he finds it exciting and not scary. Because there's something I didn't talk about, but there's something called food neophobia, and it is a inherent fear of foods that humans can go through, and for children we see it happen because the food is scary, right? Especially if they don't know what it's going to taste like, they don't know if it's going to make them sick, what's going to feel like in their mouth, am I going to be able to swallow it? By giving them opportunities to explore food and recognize, oh, I actually like the way it looks. Oh, I actually like the way it feels. And then they'll know that it's okay to put it in their mouth. Okay, so what I would do then, he sometimes agreed to try and ask for one of these things. Okay, so when he asks what we want to do, it's so hard because I don't have people's names and I like to address you by name, but nonetheless, where possible, as I mentioned in that other strategies, I want you to decide what is served, okay? So even if he says, no, I want something else, we need to let him know. Always include something that you know he can eat, But when he asks for something else, we need to say, you know what, I'm sorry, honey, but this is what's, you know, we're having to eat. Mommy doesn't want to be in the kitchen all night. There's always something you can eat. You might not want it right now, but maybe you might like it later, right? So they can eat what their favorite food is at that time, and then give him opportunities to explore the foods that he's not wanting to eat at this point, okay? I'm sorry I'm being very brief with these because I've got a bunch of different questions I want to be able to get through. What is the best way to discourage pickiness at an early age? My 16-month-old is rejecting food she previously loved, like shrimps, potatoes. Okay. Yes. Okay. So this is like 16 months, 12, 18 months, 2 years. That is when the picky eating behaviors start to surface. And that is because children recognize that they're their own person. They can control what they eat at this point. And when they do, and they know they've got that control, they will start to push off. My daughters did the same thing. My one used to love sweet potatoes, and then she hit 1.5 years and decided, nope, no more sweet potatoes. And I actually made the mistake of stop serving them because, I don't want her to, I don't want to make something that she's not going to eat. And I was like, wait a second, Danielle, this is the work you do. Take your own advice. So I continued to offer the sweet potatoes and did it in a non-pressure way, gave her opportunities to get comfortable with that food again, made it look really fun, you know, played games with it and so on. And now again, back on the list. So super critical at this age that you offer, that you continue to offer those foods without the expectation, and just try not to push it on them. I know it's so frustrating because you know they can do it, and that's a positive thing. You know he can. Okay, my 10-month-old isn't crazy about eating meat and eggs, but we're still working on it. Any suggestions? Okay, so I actually, oh, there we go, Stephanie, I just answered your question. Okay, so, hold on a second here. Okay, so for the iron question, I wouldn't worry. 10 months, super young. However, continue to offer those foods. So things like cooking spinach, you want to actually steam it. Sorry, steam it is better, and you can blend it into foods, right? So blend it into applesauce. Like, it's amazing what you can put spinach into, and also beans like chickpeas, black-eyed peas, lentils, like cooking lentils in coconut milk, super easy. It's like a 2-ingredient recipe. Something like that is great for a child that age. Even just teaching them how to pick up chickpeas and squish them. And you can do chickpea cookies. I have recipes on my blog with amazing chickpea cookie recipe that's super healthy. Also, when you're offering iron-rich foods, make sure you limit dairy with those meals, because it actually blocks the absorption of iron. And on the reverse, actually add vitamin C foods, because it can improve the absorption of iron up to 67%. So if you're giving something like spinach or chickpeas or lentils or eggs, add something like, you can add, as I mentioned, kale, spinach, 1 medium kiwi, broccoli, lemon, strawberries. All of these have about 100 milligrams of vitamin C, okay, like a handful or a cup. So by doing that, you're automatically getting more bang for your nutrition buck by giving them vitamin C foods with iron-rich foods. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. Let's see here. If I don't get your questions, by the way, you can email me at info@DanielleBinns. If you are looking for support, there's a number of different ways I support families. And of course, at a very minimum, check out the Placemat for $20. It's gonna be the best $20 you spend if you have a child who's around 3-4 years old up to 8-9 years old. Check that out. It's going to be a lifesaver for you, so you don't have to overthink how to introduce foods to your child. Okay, when should we know if and when to worry? Are vitamins something you recommend? Vitamins, yes and no. Some vitamins for sure, and supplements for kids, because we don't get enough through nutrition. And I've got 1 minute left, so I'm like, no. And so as I answer the question, when to worry. So if you've got, if you see your child's lethargic, your child's not gaining weight, the food list is shrinking, if, they get sick often, energy, kind of look at the big picture. And also if you see a shrinking food list, then yes, this is something we want to address. And if you see a food list that's not growing, better to address it now than later. I have parents that reach out when their kids are 2 and then wait till their kids are 5, and it's even harder. So earlier the better, but I've seen kids at all ages change. Okay, so I think, last question. So I think I just got the notification. I'm sorry, I think I've missed a couple questions here, but please email me and I'm happy to address them. So thank you everyone for joining me. Holy moly, I just feel like I ran a marathon. That was so fast. But I hope this was helpful for all of you. I tried to jam pack as much as I could in here. And Tegan, I just imagine that you are going to just take me offline, or?